Late one night, Henry was taking his last train to Killdane, the station by the town. He and his crew were drowsy from the day's work and longed for a good night's sleep. Soon, Henry arrived at the station. The station master was there.
"You're a little late, Henry." "Sorry, there was trouble sorting out the goods, but we eventually pulled through." "Understandable." The station staff began to unload Henry's van.
While Henry was waiting, he noticed something. A few feet from the station were a set of points leading to an overgrown line. It hadn't been maintained. Henry thought it was very strange. He then called to the station master.
"Excuse me, sir, but where does this line go through?" "Oh, that line. That was going to be an extension, but the project had been completely ceased and abandoned." Why? What happened?" "Well, the extension was going to lead some rural town over there. There was a legend that centuries ago a girl got kidnapped by a party cults known as the Danes. They were doing disturbing religious practices on her. What happened next is unknown, but a massive earthquake struck the town, killing the villagers there. Many centuries later, a line going by the town was being constructed, but then strange occurrences would happen. From what the workmen's statements, tools going missing, rails and sleepers would be knocked over by themselves, and strange whispering could faintly be heard. But those weren't the only reason why. As a massive earthquake had struck, most of the men were able to escape. Some, however, lost their lives. Because of that terrible incident, the line going there was completely cancelled, and any continuing restoration would completely be ceased and forgotten. That's why the line was left abandoned."
Henry felt a cognitive dissonance. Half of his mind on the local legend was just silly make-believes. Another half, after hearing the tragedy that took some innocent lives, shivers down his boiler.
Soon, the men had finished unloading Henry's van. "Right, Henry, your train's cleared out. You can head back now."
Henry was eager to head back to Tidmouth, but he was tired from a long journey. Even his crew was feeling very drowsy.
"I think we can get some shut-eye here for one night. Any place in?" "Well, there is a motel a few feet away for you two to book for the night." "And what about me?" "I'm sorry to say this, but there isn't any sheds here. But since there are no trains running this late, you can tuck in here for the night." "Bother! That means I'll be sleeping out in the cold night."
Later, Henry's crew walked up to their engine.
"Well, night, Henry. And make sure to have a good night's rest, as we need to head back to Tidmouth for our morning's work." "I will. Good night, driver. Night, fireman."
His crew then headed to the motel. Henry was all alone, with only the single van behind his tender. He wanted to sleep, but his mind recalled what the station master has said.
"Because of that terrible incident, the line going there was completely cancelled."
Henry looked towards the overgrown line. He wasn't sure. Did the legend really cause it?
"Rubbish. There's no way. That station must be bonkers."
As he said that, he could faintly hear a whispering.
Hello? Who's there? Hello?"
Then, the whispering shortly stopped. Henry wasn't sure, as he felt his wheels shaking.
"I must be hallucinating. I need to get some sleep."
He then closed his eyes and dozed off to sleep. But it wasn't long. Henry then woke to find himself moving.
What? What's going on? Driver? What are you doing?"
There was no reply, and he felt no presence in his cab.
"Help! I can't stop!"
Henry couldn't do anything. He closed his eyes as he was diverted to the overgrown line. When Henry got past through the bushes, he suddenly stopped. Slowly, he opened his eyes and gasped. To Henry's sight was an overgrown town. He couldn't believe it. Then, Henry found himself moving again.
Where are we going?"
To whatever's driving him, he had no choice but to puff further on. Henry looked all around as buildings covered in vegetation stood and its rubble lay everywhere. He felt a sick feeling in his firebox. Soon, he came across a dark tunnel. It looked very spooky.
I don't want to go in! I don't want to go in!
But he had no choice as he puffed nervously in. It was completely pitch black. Henry felt blinded. Then Henry could make out an orange glow. He felt a little better. Then he began to hear chanting.
What's going on over there?
Henry's comfort was drowned by a new feeling of tremble. When he got out, Henry could see an orange bright glow on the top. He gasped. Then, a girl's voice could be heard, begging and crying. He didn't know what they were doing, but hearing the cries of the girl made him pity her. Henry unthinkably called out,
Hey, leave her alone!
Suddenly, the chanting began to get louder and louder and sounding more aggressive. The girls screaming were increasingly psychotic. Henry began to feel hyper-arousal. When all of a sudden, silence. It was complete pitch black. Henry was frozen in fear. He couldn't process what just happened. Then, he began to hear a whimper, and all of a sudden, an orange light flickered on like a light switch. There was a girl in white, kneeling down, crying, covering her face. Henry stared. He'd seen so much that he wanted to get out of this place. He reversed slowly and quietly, holding his steam as he can, trying not to make a sound. But then, Henry stopped and looked. The girl had heard him. She stood up and turned to Henry. Henry's jaw dropped even lower. The girl stared. Henry was petrified. But then, Henry couldn't bear it and reversed out as fast as he could. The next morning, Edward was called to retrieve Henry from Killdane. He was worried for his dear friend. When Edward arrived, he stopped beside Henry. Henry, are you all right? Henry? That's what we've been asking. I don't know what happened last night. Something must have scarred him badly. I think it's best for Henry to recover. Edward gently buffered up to Henry. Henry had a moment out of his dissociative state. He looked to see that the points leading to the overgrown line. It was still there, sitting, being always left forgotten. His boiler had gone colder. At last, with a peep of his whistle, Edward hauled Henry to Titmus. The journey was very quiet. Henry looked down at his running board. From then on, he swore to never stop by Killdane. I don't think he's unlikely to get past